guys. So the Houston Rockets really they don't have Mikey Antoni anymore. Thought that was a good move. And don't get me wrong, I love Mikey Antoni. He is a great coach to have. He made James Harden from an all-star to a superstar. That is a very rare thing to do. That's very rare from a coach. But the problem is that his style of play, his team doesn't work. So, who are the coaching candidates for the Houston Rockets? Who would be the best coaches for the Houston Rockets? Let's talk about that. So, the first coach candidate I would really like on the Houston Rockets. This is actually the best option, in my opinion, the best coach the Houston Rockets can get. He's a top 5 coach of all time, in my opinion. And I really think you guys would think that he's a top 5 coach of all time. And his name is Greg Popovich. Now, yes, Greg Popovich is not a fired coach, so you might be a little confused. But there is some speculation going on that he could get fired. So yeah, but I don't think that's gonna be true. I think that's very unrealistic that he would get fired, and I just don't think that would happen. I don't think a coach like Greg Popovich would be fired. I think that's just some rumors out there, but Greg Popovich, if he was on the Rockets, I really think this would be the best coach James Harden will have. First of all, he likes his players to shoot mid-ranges, and you can't win a championship without shooting mid-ranges. Harden, before Mikey Antoni came in, before he was the best player on the team, really. Okay, he was still the best player on the team, but before he really shot way more mid-ranges than you would think he would. And I just feel like that was underrated part of his game. When he shot those mid-ranges, they were falling, and I think he's a really good mid-range shooter, and I think that could push the Rockets over the edge. I don't just think shooting three-pointers would lead to a championship. But I really think this one is very unrealistic. And first of all, he hasn't even got fired, so I don't think the Rockets would even be able to get him. And even if he's fired by next year, they'll probably have a coach already. So Greg Popovich is very, very, very unrealistic for the Houston Rockets. You'll probably hire him on NBA 2K. Next coaching candidate for the Houston Rockets is Tyronn Lue. I don't think he gets enough credit. And that's just what happens when you're on a team with LeBron James. You see Nick Nurse, Eric Spoelstra getting that credit. We deserve Brad Stevens. But Tyronn Lue has won a championship with LeBron James. And this is just the same thing with Frank Vogel. He doesn't get that credit either. He's the one who made a defensive scheme to stop the Rockets. And I think they wouldn't even have won that series if they didn't even have that defensive scheme. I'm going to be honest. That's just like crazy, that defensive scheme that Frank Vogel thought of. But let's just go back to the Tyronn Lue topic. So he has a really good playoff record, and that's just really good for his resume. And I think he'll be a very interesting coach. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good of a coach he is. So I think Tyronn Lue would be a pretty good coach. The next coach I really want to talk about is Becky Hammon. This is very interesting. Becky Hammon, if you didn't know, is a female NBA coach. And he's an assistant for the San Antonio Spurs. It's either her or Tim Duncan taking that place or taking that route. It's either one of them. But for the Rockets, I think that would be very interesting. And don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for her, but I just don't think this would be good for her coaching career if she starts coaching. I just really don't think that would be good for her career. Because, Becky Hammond, if she plays her first year in Houston, there's going to be so much pressure. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, championship contenders, like every year. But that's just going to be so much pressure on Becky Hammond. I don't want her to fail. I want her to succeed. So I think like a solid team, she could actually coach right now, in my opinion. I think she could coach a team right now, but I don't think she'll be able to take the pressure for the Houston Rockets. I think that's for her best. That would be best for her, for the team. So I think Becky Hammond should not go to the Rockets, but she is a pretty good choice and pretty interesting. Another coach I want to talk about is Billy Donovan. Keep in mind the OKC Thunder had a 0.4% chance of making the NBA playoffs. Billy Donovan was a great coach, but you also have to give some credit to Chris Paul, but Billy Donovan was a literal Coach of the Year candidate. He makes adjustments unlike Mike D'Antoni, and nothing wrong with Mike D'Antoni. I don't want to say anything super bad about him, but I just think Billy Donovan just makes more adjustments. It could be better for the team. I think it will be really interesting. Another coach I want to talk about is Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry got fired from the New Orleans Pelicans. That really, really surprised me. That was actually crazy when I heard the news. I think that was a bad decision for the Pelicans. Now for the Rockets, he is a really good offensive coach, but defensively, as a coach, he has his issues, and I don't think that would be good for the Rockets. The Rockets need at least an okay defensive coach, and I don't think that would be that good for the Houston Rockets. Another coach I really want to talk about is Nate McMillan. This would be a really, really interesting option for the Houston Rockets. Nate McMillan was a coach for the Indiana Pacers. He was a pretty average coach, but one thing I really want to say about him is that he was a really good defensive coach. He is a really, really good defensive coach. And that would be really, really good for the Rockets. But offensively, he's okay. So I think he'll be really interesting. I don't know what would happen if we hired Nate McMillan. Another coach I would want to talk about is Chris Finch. If you didn't know him already, he's a D-League coach for the D-League team roster for the Houston Rockets. And I put him in this list because he has some experience with the Rockets. I mean, he knows probably all the Rockets players. Chris Clemens, you probably don't know him, but he was in the D-League and he was coaching Chris Clemens. He was coaching some of the D-League players for the Rockets, and he just has that connection. And I just think that would be pretty good for the Houston Rockets if he has that connection with the Houston Rockets. Another coach that can't leave out of this list is Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson was a coach for the Warriors, and I think he was such a good coach for Steph Curry. I think he was very underappreciated for that. He's the one, who formed the dynasty. All these players were really good. Then Steve Kerr came in. And I'm not taking anything away from Steve Kerr or anything. I'm not saying that the Warriors are such a good team. Steve Kerr wasn't a good coach. But I'm just pointing out that Mark Jackson is very underrated as a coach right now. And I think that is big fact right there. He's a very underrated coach. And I think a team would definitely like to pick Mark Jackson up for their next coach. So, which coach do I think the Houston Rockets should get? That's the title of the video. Well, let's put a drum roll to that, because I mentioned a lot of coaches. Drum roll, please, come on. So the coach will be Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell played for the Houston Rockets before, and he was a pretty smart point guard. And again, I said that they needed a person who has a connection with the Houston Rockets, and that's Sam Cassell. And he's also been an assistant for the Clippers for a little while, and he's also been pretty good at his job right there for the Clippers. I thought that was a really good job by Sam Cassell. He won against the OKC Thunder when he took over as a coach. He has some experience too, so I think he's an experienced coach with some teams. He's an assistant coach, obviously. He's never been a head coach before, but I think he's the right option. I think he's interesting, but he has that connection to the Houston Rockets. He believes that the small ball lineup would work, so I got Sam Cassell being the coach for the Houston Rockets. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as much support is very much appreciated, and peace out.